name's David James, and I'm here to show you the 4 chords that you absolutely need to know as a guitar player. And also, in turn, by learning these 4 chord shapes, you're going to know actually 24 chords. And that's following with the next video where I'm going to show you where to put them. But let's get into it. What we're talking about are bar chords. And bar chords are in 2 categories on the guitar. They're called bar chords, one, because you use your finger like a bar or like a capo to play more than one note at a time on the guitar. And then the next thing is, it's in a category called movable chords. And movable chords are one of the greatest parts about being a guitar player. Because essentially, when you learn the shape of an open chord, like this major chord here, wherever I move it, it's going to be a major chord. Thus, all I really need to know is the note that we're building the chord off of. So for example, this G, G sharp, B, etc. By just learning this one chord shape, I've essentially learned 12 chords. I just need to place it in the correct position. That's why this is vastly important knowledge, and it's going to help you learn a ton of songs, just by looking at the charts, and you're going to know, oh, I know what to do with this now. Before we get into the chords, we should discuss real quick what roots are. Roots are what a chord or a scale is built around. You need that essential seed or that root for the rest of the notes in your scalar chord to grow from. And that's most often the lowest note in a chord or in a scale. Not always, but most often. So in these bar chord shapes, the lowest note is going to be our root, and we need to pay attention to where our root is to build our chords in the right spot. How do we play a major chord? So what we're going to do is we're going to place our fingers on here one by one. So we've got our first finger on our root, and for this, it does not matter where the root is, but we use the 5th fret. We've got our root, and then we're going to build the rest of the chord. So we've got our 3rd finger on the 7th fret here, our 4th finger on the 7th fret on the D string. Then we've got our 2nd finger on the 6th fret of the G string. And then now our 1st finger, which is down here playing the root, we're going to need to pull that in so that it's also playing the B and the E strings. If you're having trouble doing this, there's a couple techniques. One is you want to make sure you have proper form. And if you take a look at the back here, I've got my thumb perpendicular to the neck, right, the opposite direction, intersecting it. And it's right about either in the middle of the back of the neck, or I probably like a little bit more towards the top. You can make your hand like a vice. This will be much easier to pull your finger in. Now, the next technique, if you're having a tough time, is to take that 1st finger, this guy, and you're going to roll them. You're going to roll them away from you, right? So if we're laying flat right now, we're going to roll them away from your face like he's taking a little nap. Roly-poly. Now, not this much, because that's obviously absurd. People don't play guitar like that. But you're going to roll it just a little bit. And that might help flatten your fingers so you can get all of your notes. And some other factors might be, the action, how far away your strings are from your fretboard, literally the shapes of your fingers or your hands. Everyone is built differently that way. And it's easier for some people than it is for other people. But don't be disheartened. Give it time. Spend 10 minutes a day or 5 minutes before you practice. Build that muscle, because you will get there. And you can just do so much with 4 simple shapes. Let's look at our minor chord. And our minor chord is very similar to our major chord, only we're going to lift up our 2nd finger. So try not to offend anybody, in the audience when you play. But that's the difference. Now, what I also like to do is, if I don't just want my 2nd finger suspended, I'll, in the ether, I'll lay it on top of my 1st finger, like they're buddies, doing a little cuddle puddle, And that extra weight can sometimes help me get that finger down even easier. Alright, so that's our major and minor bar chords for the E string root. Now we're going to look at it for the A string root. So let's start with the major one. And we'll do it on the 5th fret of the A string. Now this one is a little bit tricky because you kind of have to, if you're not double jointed, become a little bit double jointed. And if you can't do that, there are alternatives. But we'll discuss that in a different lesson. There's always a way to solve that problem. But for this one, you got our finger, first finger on the root, and then we're barring just the D, G, and B strings. We don't want to play that E string. If you do, it's still a pleasant chord, but it's no longer strictly just a major chord. It's a major add 6 or major 13th, depending how you look at it. We're going for specificity here, you know, knowing what it is that you're playing. Now the next one is the minor bar chord with the A string root. That looks like this. Now in this one, the first finger is doing the bar. If you cannot bar that top note on the E string, it's not a big deal. It really doesn't have very useful harmonic information, but we will get into that. But it does make it more full. What's really important is to get the rest of these notes on there. And then the last thing, the last note, whenever you're playing a chord where the root of the chord is on the A string, you want your finger to be as close to the E string as possible. But you don't want to hold it down. We want to mute it. And if you're not close enough, it's going to ring out. But if you get just close enough, you'll mute it, it'll be dead. But the earlier you start playing chords like that, it's going to save you so much time and such of a headache, make you such a stronger player quickly. And another big part of that is if you're not finger picking, or even if you are finger picking, but especially if you're strumming and you kind of have, you know, you're rocking out, your hands going all over the place, you can't just be specifically aiming, you know, just for the A, D, G, and B strings. That's insane. No one can do that. You want to learn how to mute and play chords at the exact same time. Not my favorite song I ever played, but I think it gets the point across. So anyways, guys, that's it. Memorize these chords, major and minor, all 4 shapes, because in the next video, the part 2, we're going to learn the notes on the E and the A strings. What you're going to do is you're going to be able to play a chord, then move it to the correct root note. So by knowing one major chord, you know all 12 major chords. And the same thing, you know one minor chord shape, all you have to do is transpose it, and you know all 12 minor chords. I might get some flack for that being a little reductive. There's lots of different ways to, you know, voice chords and types of minor chords. But as far as your minor triad goes, you're learning a ton of chords by just learning one shape. And that's one of the great advantages of being a guitar player, as opposed to a pianist or I don't know how many other choral instruments there are. Please check out the next video. Learn these chords. I hope you have fun. If you have any questions, let me know. Please like and subscribe. I'm really looking forward to doing these videos. I think I can really help a lot of people learn a lot of things. Save you, 15 years. So thanks again. I'm David James. Take care.